This is a video on how open and honest you should be in an interview. Because sometimes we have opinions of the way we think about things, but we don't know if it's appropriate to actually say them in an interview. And I'll give you an example where being honest really doesn't help you that much. So let's say that, and I've had a real client say that this is their response. Let's just say that someone said, tell me a time when you hadn't met a deadline and what you sort of did around it. And this person would say something like, oh, I always met my deadline, so that's never happened to me. And so the problem with that answer is if someone's writing that down, like, what are they going to say? Like, what are they going to evaluate you on? They've got no evidence, because we always think about when someone asks a question, right, why are they asking it? So a question about deadlines might be around how do you let people know, or how do you assess priorities, or how do you communicate when things are tough, or how do you work in a team to get things done, or it could be lots of different things. So by being really literal with the question and being like, no, that would happen to me, it doesn't really do you that much justice. Because when you think about someone else might answer it like, well, a way you can, if that is true for you, so say if this is true for you that you've never missed a deadline, then the way I would reframe this question is something like this. So you've asked me a time what I would do if I couldn't meet a deadline or didn't meet a deadline, and what would I do about it? Let me tell you all the things that I do to manage my time effectively. So one of the things that I do is I have a list of things that I get through on the day. I also set reminders in Outlook to when I need to do things. I do things in sprints. So I say for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be allocating my time to this particular area, or, I'm going to be allocating my time to this particular function. I also, reach out to other people if I need help to get things done. And I'll notify my team leader in advance if I can't do something. I know your question is, what would I do if I didn't meet a deadline? So like I said, it hasn't happened, but this is what I would do in that scenario. I would notify the team leader straight away that I was unable to meet the deadline, and I'd also come up with a bit of a plan for them about how I've done 3/4 of it and how I plan to do the other quarter. So maybe I come in early the next morning, maybe if it's appropriate, I do some stuff at home, maybe I suggest that who else in the team might be available to help, maybe I suggest that I could reach out to the client and who is expecting this piece of work and sort of say, look, it's not coming for these reasons, it hasn't arrived on time, can I get it to you early tomorrow morning? In most cases, deadlines, despite the name, no one dies as a result of not meeting a deadline. Most deadlines have some flexibility built into it. Wouldn't necessarily say that as an answer, but what I'm saying is you don't have to be really literal with it. You can kind of move the boundary. And one of the key parts, and I've covered it in other videos, is taking ownership over a question. So if you feel like they're narrowing you into a box with a question, broaden it out. So if they're narrowing you into a box where they're asking you about not meeting a deadline, and you know that you never missed a deadline, broaden the question, because you don't want to be caught narrow. Because when you think about how interview scores are evaluated, it's about how you add value to the position. And if you don't give me any information, how am I going to see the value? And you might say, well, yeah, I always meet my deadlines. Well, are you just saying that? Like what? How? Like what are you doing? Like, are you just telling me something that I want to hear? So even if it may be true for you, explain what you do to help, mitigate deadlines. The other thing people get trapped in is, you may have really strong opinions about the way things should be done or certain things. You may have a very strong opinion on this shirt. And maybe like, why is he wearing it? What does that shirt mean? What is it saying? I got this at a thrift store 10 years ago, actually probably more like 20. And I used to wear it when I did facilitating. It was just kind of my getting my party shirt. I remember a time when my dad made fun of me for this shirt. And then one time I was walking down the local bike track, and then the car horn honked, and I turned, and there's my dad wearing this shirt going off to a party. So even when people are mocking you for something, sometimes they secretly admire. So the whole point of this related to this video is you can be open and honest with who you are, but you kind of can mitigate it a little bit. And you can say something like, if you get a question like, I don't know, how would you deal with this certain customer? And maybe you'd had a really bad relationship with this type of customer, and your gut point, your initial thought might be like, that customer's terrible. They never do what they say they're going to do. You might hold all these negative opinions. And so if you say all those things, it's going to make you sound negative. It's not going to really reflect on the customer. But you can be open and honest and acknowledge it and just sort of say, look, as you know, we've had difficult challenges with that particular client. However, here's the things that I've done to work through that, to help build that positive relationship. So you can still kind of acknowledge it if it's true, but you don't have to get into the why, because your opinion may not be shared by anyone else. So if you're really opinionated and open and honest about something, just make sure that that opinion is kind of consistent, or just to keep opinions to yourself. Just keep it very factual what you did.